Management is on site. Ownership lives somewhere else. They ain't concerned about that. They count profits. Well, many of the folks in New York City, in places like New York, around the turn of the century, white ethnics who came from various places in old Europe, who are oppressed in these places, bound together. And they show their displeasure with management in rituals that we now call here Labor Day. Other places they may call it like May Day. You heard of May Day? May Day is obviously in May. You see that it's big in like Russia, Cuba, during the Soviet years, communist years. Labor Day was about working class people. That was then, this is now. Now Labor Day is a day you take picnic.
You are shopping.
Oh, look at you black people, always racially sensitive about it. You go out on an excursion. You take off Thursday and we'll come back Tuesday.
Etymology?
Huh? Well, it's interesting. I've never been able to corroborate colloquially that the word picnic is sort for pick a nigger, indeed. But what I am clear about, what you all should be clear about, and you have to be clear about it, you can look at any documentary on lynching, look at the photo book catalog that went with the exhibition Without Sanctuary, which talks about lynching. And in fact, when people were lynched, overwhelmingly black, men, women, in a few cases, children, documented cases, probably many more cases than have been documented. But in other cases, whites, usually white ethnics, or poor people, but overwhelmingly black. On many of those occasions, they were social events. So people did indeed bring lunches and blankets and their children and spread out spreads and watched on the hills while somebody was strung up and set on fire. So, if you go, you can Google that and see pictures of people like, and then postcards of the event were taken and made and sent to people as souvenirs. Yeah. Just think, for example, if O.J. Simpson could have been executed in public, how many people would have paid to come to the field and watch him strung up from the 50-yard line, and you understand the mentality. We're against this nigga. Kill him, I want to come and bring my child. Look. I don't want to look. Here, suck on this ice cream and watch this man burn. In other words, this is a criminal. This is a man who stands in other words, it's like the death penalty. That's what they saw lynching as. The unofficial death penalty. So yeah, pick a nigger has been widely circulated as an idea, conceptually that this is where it came from, pick a nigger, but this idea, however, behind the sentiment of using this as a public spectacle, oh no, that's absolutely historically verified. You can see that very quickly. Very quickly. The spectacle of the lynching. In fact, that's why Clarence Thomas, many years later, would say that he considered himself a victim of a high-tech lynching when he was on TV and they kept interrogating him. He was right for the wrong reasons. Oh, bracket, by the way, looks like John Paul Stevens, the 86-year-old justice who's the oldest justice on the court and the second oldest Supreme Court justice to serve in Supreme Court history behind Albert Wendell Holmes. Apparently he hired only one law clerk this term. Court watchers usually signal that to mean that he's getting ready to retire because retired judges get to have one clerk. So maybe Obama gets to make another pick. We don't know. We got to keep our eyes peeled to that. But at any rate, so Labor Day started with labor organizing itself. But now we have that invention of Western capitalism. The Egyptians had 30-day months, 12 months. Each week was 10 days. That was later shortened and changed around. And somewhere the idea came in that you work 5 days and 2 days you take off, and you call that the right. So now we have the Labor Day weekend. I didn't look in the paper today for this, but I'm sure in these papers, whether it be New York Times, Washington Post, there will be flyers for the Labor Day weekend, which is when you give your money back to people who gave it to you on the weekend, which is particularly egregious because the one weekend devoted to improving the lot of the labor has now been reduced to improving the lot of the owners. All right. But many people on the postings ask questions about capitalism. This is a topic we're going to go into in some detail next week. and the week after, in particular the week after, as we talk about racial capitalism, we're going to talk about capitalism in a way that is very clear so people can get a sense of what we mean when we talk about the socioeconomic system. We're also going to talk about the fact that it hasn't been around forever. Hasn't been around forever. But, in fact, let me stop there for a second and hope that I didn't go back to the office. I mean, everybody haven't been back to the office this morning. How recent? Well, let me see. I thought I had it. I must have it. It must be in here. Capitalism is a phenomenon. Capitalism is a phenomenon that really traces back as a system say probably the 16th century. But this is why it's difficult. In fact, why not? Those of you who brought black Marxism, let's look at this. Let's look at this. Here we go. Page 24. Bottom of the page. See the section that begins the effects of? The effects of Western civilization on what? Capitalism. Above that. Count 1, 2, 3 lines. Although the third line is only 2 words, it's appearance. 1, 2, 3 lines. European civilization is not the product of capitalism. On the contrary, the character of capitalism can only be understood in the social and historical context of its appearance. Meaning what? Capitalism is not an abstract idea. So to talk about the beginning of capitalism is the appropriate first question. But really, what we're asking about is where is the beginning of the historical circumstances that led to what we now call capitalism? For example, let's look at ourselves. Collectively, most of the people in this room, all the people in this room would be called what kind of people? Racial. Black people. So a child might come in here and say, well, when do black people begin? One answer could be the answer Jeremiah gave Tuesday, which is black people begin when black thought begins at the beginning of human history. But really, what is that child asking? Where we come from. Where you come from? Say it again. Where did y'all come from? But who is y'all? Y'all is a historical creation. There are 2 types of black. There's black the way we talked about it before race, and that is an extremely important conversation for us to begin. But before we can even begin that conversation, because black, we talking about black before, in fact, the Kikongo would say, if you go want the coolest, sweetest water, you go out in the middle of the pond. Why? That's the black water. That's what they would call it. That's before race, though. The Egyptians would say that Wosir, at manifestations of Wosir, could be seen as the Lord of the Kimware, the perfect black. In other words, the blackest sky. It's not black people or white people. We're talking about black, the idea of blackness. The people of Kemet sketched forth their philosophy, their deep thought of how the world began, and we still use their blueprint. You open up the Bible, in the beginning was the Word, but what was beginning? What was before anything? Darkness. The blackest black. The blackness of the womb, the creative force. Out of that, and out of that, Ptah made the utterance, and speech moved forward. So then they say the beginning was the Word. The blackness. So there's that black. That's really the black we should be talking about. We should be talking about race. If we could just get past race, we could get back to the real concept of grapple. What does it mean to have black? Black is not the absence of light. What is it? It's the combination of all that exists. Everything comes out of the blackness. It's amazing, isn't it? The first human beings, like people in this room, you adapt to the other places, which is beautiful. But all of those things result, if you put it all